With the confirmation of where we want to mount this, I've put in those 4 screws to lock this back in place. The last thing to do is add in the little trim panels for it. These are going to slide over it just like this, and that finishes off the look of this radio. The last thing I want to do is make sure that when this goes into here, it's going to sit just like this, that I can get my screws into this location. In some cases there are pieces that hang over it and whatnot. The other thing I'd like to do is see if I can slide this back any. Now doing that is going to open up viewing from the left and right, but it might be worth it because I can go back at least another 1/4 inch. Actually I can go back more. So if I slide this radio back as far as it can, and this as far forward as I can get it, I can still get my screwdriver into these spots, and where it's stopping is right on those clips that were in the way. Tighten that down. See where that is at. So actually, looking at it from left and right, you really don't see into it because there is stuff still in the way. The next step is to make sure I have room in the dash for that. In order to test that, I will put it back into its mount and we'll tuck her back in and see if this fits into the car this way with this moved back that extra 1/2 inch. And the car definitely doesn't like me doing that. It is definitely getting in the way.
Which one?
The air conditioner.
Really?
Yep.
What about this?
No, I already cut all that off. This is, see, it's sitting on the air conditioner.
So it has to be up.
Well, I've slid it back. I was trying to get it to slide back some so it doesn't stick out as much. But it's now, this is...
It's hitting this.
No, it's hitting this.
Really?
Yeah. It's not even getting in that far. Alright, let me slide it back out and see if that changes anything. You can't always have your cake and eat it too. Okay, we've ran into some problems. Let's head back over the bench and I'll explain what's going on. Alright, so here is the dilemma that we have in moving the radio to the bottom like we wanted to do. And when I test fitted it, I didn't test fit it with this cage on it. So that was definitely my mistake. It happens. Because of that, what we're running into is that this piece used to taper up like this to get around the air conditioner. I didn't think about that, I screwed up. What we're now looking at is I would have to move this back up to the top, but we don't want to do that because we can't get it down low enough. And so that means we are gonna have to modify this dash bezel to mount it the way Fernando would like it in his car, which is perfectly fine. I think that's gonna be the better move. If you're doing one of these for your car and you don't wanna deal with all that, which of course you don't, just leave it at the top and proceed with the installation as we normally would. We are going to move on to the next part of this installation, which is we're gonna change this so that we can move this radio up here to the middle, and yeah, that seems to be what works for me right now. And in doing so, then we can move this back further. Yay! It's time to treat this like a lab and go full deep. That doesn't change anything as far as what you need to do in order to get this into the car. Just know that if you want to put this in, it needs to stay up here at the top, unless you have something like an L chassis or something that has a short chassis, or you're redesigning the way this is gonna fit like we're going to do. And so for that means it's time to remove some screws and have some fun. We made some modifications and we got it to where it will fit the way Fernando would like it to fit in the dash. Let me explain what we did to kind of give you an idea of what went into it. The first thing was centering the radio into the kit and drilling some new holes. Not the funnest thing. However, if you line the radio up with the bottom of this, which is the top of this one. That'll get you right where the radio needs to be so that it can get pushed back into the dash. Next, we headed over to the laser and we cut a black piece of 1/8 inch acrylic that matches all of this, and that allowed us to sink it in a whole bunch. Then I went back to the radio, adjusted it to its maximum height, and now this will slide in, and it's a lot nicer. It's pulled in as far as we can and down as much as we can get it, and of course from the side it looks nice and sexy. Let's take a look at the wiring harness before we put this into the car, because we're gonna make some changes to it. One of the cool features we learned about in the video where we showed you the operating system was the fact that this will do tweeter, mid, and subwoofer, an active front set. And we wanna do that. Even though the car didn't come with it, we're gonna add in some tweeters. To do that though, we need to modify this portion of the harness that we left exposed. The first thing is going to be just cutting the whole thing in half. On the car side, we will not be using the green and purple. Those are the rear speakers. We'll just fold those back out of the way and add a zip tie to the harness so that they're just not there. There is no power coming from the speakers, so there's nothing electrical on this side. That means we don't need to cap these off. Now, how this system is designed to work is that the white pair and the gray pair are going to be our tweeters, and our green pair and purple pair are going to be our mid bass. And how this is going to connect back to the factory, our green pair is going to go to the white pair and the purple pair is going to go to the gray pair, matching up solids and stripes. Now, because this is not going to be the only time we're going to disconnect those, we are going to use our bullet connectors on this so that at some point we can come back in here and modify it yet again. If you are doing something like this and you want it to be permanent, use solder or your connector of choice. Now make sure you use the female end on the radio side because this has power, and on the car side you can use the male end. Those connections are made. Lastly, I have to add the females to my white and grays so that we connect them to the car side. With this modification done, it is time to get this into the car. Let's go take a look at all the peripherals that Fernando installed and see how he did that. Yeah. The first thing we're going to look at is the gray-yellow wire, which is for the stop-start. This little guy with the white plug. Where did you hook it up?
This one in the instructions says go to the stop start plug and hook it up to the brown purple wire. The pin is number 5. The plug goes like this. You can see the number 1 in here and goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the plug that you're going to use. Brown, purple. It doesn't say to cut it. It says to top it. The next thing I did was running my OBD2 port, and this goes all the way to the top. I plugged iData USB and USB-C into the factory location. Those run the same thing in that side.
So did that just plug in from the back side?
That just clips in. You don't have to do any modifications. It clips. It is so simple. I also ran my microphone, goes all the way to the top of the headliner, attaches to the factory wiring harness, and then across to the dash. Also, the GPS antenna goes, it's a little bit difficult because this is all sealed, but if you put your hand and reach all the way to the back, you kind of feel this part right here, and it's all plastic, so you attach it to the top of the plastic and you're good to go.
With all the peripherals wired up, the dash kit is done. It's time to get the radio into the dash. So we showed you how we modified the wiring harness because we're adding A-pillar speakers here. This car didn't have them. The other thing he had to run was these tweeter wires right here that are gonna hook up to those white and gray outputs. The tweeters, we'll show you how we do that in another video, so stay tuned for that. It's time to start putting all of this back together and getting it into the dash. The first piece in the puzzle, putting it back together, is the piece that we trimmed out, which is that main mount for the radio right here. Let's grab that and our Torx and get that screwed into place.